I think at all times the city is displaying that fear is simply joy paralyzed, and overcoming fear is always a liberation of joy. And the pigeons represent this message in every neighborhood of the city. Living in mostly a state of grace, which I would say is a general disassociation from fear. You know, the state when you're not afraid of anybody and nobody's afraid of you. And I'd say the pigeon hangs out on that plateau a lot of the day. Everybody got across the street that time? Wow, it's a good group. Really athletic to be able to get across that whole street.
You're easy to impress.
I consider this to be one of the most difficult intersections of New York right there that we just manhandled. Yeah, because the tour is at its best when it's a collaboration, you know? So I like to start with everyone introducing themselves and maybe making a comment about love and where you're from. My name is Speed. I'm a tour guide, adventurer. I've been a licensed New York City tour guide since 1992. I'm a microscopic appreciator of this beauty, and I'm really happy to be here. And love is the answer. 27,000 trees are planted, 10.5 million cartloads of topsoil imported, and 140 miles of drainage pipes laid. And these are the basic ingredients of the supposedly natural creation called Central Park. And there is nothing natural about Central Park. Welcome. And as we move along, note the rock. You know, the rock is some of the original ingredients of this landscape. In fact, the only original ingredient of the landscape. The statistic I love is, this is a juicy one, twice as much gunpowder was used to blast through the rock of this original district to build Central Park than was used in the Battle of Gettysburg. And 52,000 men or so were killed at Gettysburg. So you can see that the building of Central Park was actually a very violent act. Mess. Filled with explosions and mules and sweat, about 18 years of it. So the rocks are little footnotes left behind by the architects to remind us of what the original landscape looked like. And a lot of the genius of the architecture is that they were just jazz musicians playing with the land, having a melody, you know, they weren't really controllers of the nature as much as they were dancing with it. And if they came across a swamp, they had so many creative things to do with the swamp. A swamp was just a new canvas, it was a new opportunity. So it was a pretty salacious time. And the secessionist movement in New York was very powerful. Fernando Wood, who had been the mayor of New York, headed up the movement that wanted to secede from the Union along with the southern states. They wanted New York City to join Texas, you know, and Louisiana. And they were a powerful lobby, you know. So the day that the draft riots opened, they were incinerated within an hour. They were all in flames. And the city just exploded in violence in many neighborhoods. Hi. And there was about apparently 80,000 wounded and 3,000 fatalities over 5 days of war. And in many cases, the police force was going into battle with the rioters, and both sides were entirely Irish. It was Irishmen against Irishmen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's an avalanche of children. Yeah, I love that thing.
That's nice.
Lucky Christmas, a lot of things like that. Yeah. Well, that's not the work of poets or preservationists. That was where the rock was. That was the work of the rock. And it was much harder to build tall buildings in that area with the meadow. Then the rock exploded. explodes, becomes huge again, and very near the surface of the island, right around 34th Street. Like, for instance, the foundation of the Empire State Building, apparently, is 50 feet deep. It's like a shallow hole for 102 stories of limestone and granite and steel. And that's because that's how solid that rock is and how close to the surface it is. And then it just keeps escalating throughout this area. We talked about all the explosives and sweat that went into removing the rock of this area. Private landowners, rocks there are so huge. Greenwich Village, Soho, Chelsea, Harlem, Manhattan. And I've had conversations with the Rock of Central Park, and they're all laughing because they tell me that they spend all day watching the most complicated mammal on the planet, trying to have a good time. Trees and grass everywhere. Yeah, that's, you know, that's going to be the climax. What are you up to? Around you now is a great view, panoramic, of congestion, traffic. Traffic is the great city teacher's method of inflicting patience on a population obviously addicted to impatience. And as the great tour guide Franz Kafka once said, impatience is what got us kicked out of paradise in the first place. And what a traffic jam in New York City really is an international congregation of souls experiencing a tantric orgy, complete with exhaust and horns. The taxis are yellow because Van Gogh, the painter, used yellow to represent love and passion on his canvases. And as the taxi cabs accelerate around us now, feel the love and the roar of their engine.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away!
Hey, boo!
Boo! Boo!
I think it's kind of kinky. That's me.